Anyway, let's talk about the Open Document Standard, which is the only standard for documents that we have today, the true document standard. Standards are around us everywhere, more or less. We wear standard. If you are married, you have a ring which has a standard size. It's an ISO standard. You may not be aware of that, but the size of your wedding ring is an ISO standard, as the size of our shoes and others. The Gregorian calendar is a standard that should be followed by software, but not all software is following the Gregorian calendar as a standard. So what is a standard? A standard is in the reality, is a document that describes something in a way that everyone can implement that following a description, and the implementation are the same, which means that users are protected by the standard because they don't have to worry about what they do. When we plug in our power supply for our phones, we know that the electricity is a standard that it will be accepted by our power supply. And therefore, we don't burn our phone and we don't burn our power supply, as it would be if the electricity was not standard. And there are two kinds of standards, de jure and de facto. Actually, the first one, so that the jure ones, are those that protect the users because they are based on documents. They are based on something that is a reference. In some cases, de facto standards are not based on documents. Music notation is a standard. It's not based on document. It's a de facto standard. But accepting music notation and following it, if you don't follow it, no one will read your music, but you won't damage the other users. If you do something, if a standard is developed commercially, the objective of that standard is to lock in the users to the standard. This is what happens, unfortunately, with one of the two document standards that we have, which is not a standard, exactly because it's a de facto standard and not a de jure standard. The de jure standard is basically ignored, so it's a de facto standard. I'm talking about Microsoft Office file format, document file format. So the jure standards have several advantages. I'm not going over all of them. The slides are available, so you can read them afterwards if you're interested. And of course, a world without standards would be incredibly difficult for us. Imagine you have to fill up the trunk of your car with petrol, and you go to the petrol station, and you ask, is your petrol compatible with my car? Because each car has uses a different kind of petrol. That it would be impossible. Could you imagine such a world? It's really something that we would have different difficulties in imagining a world without standards. And unfortunately, we never really thought about document standards until a brilliant gentleman, Tim Berners-Lee, came out with the HTML. And he protected HTML, and he made HTML a document standard. It's a virtual document standard, but it's a document standard. And today, independently from the computer, the browser we use, if we use a smartphone or a computer or whatever, we access websites because they're based on a standard. And this, I think, you can understand how document standards are important to share our content. A content shared by HTML will be available for everyone, independently from the native language, from the computer, the position, geographical position. So HTML is basically allows everyone to share the contents with all the other people. And this is what we expect from the digital world. Document standards, on the other hand, are extremely complex. We see the document on the screen and we think that it's easy. No, it's not easy. I have a degree in humanities, and I've worked with documents for the last 60 years of my life, probably even more than 60. And I never thought about documents in technical way. Then when I started to be involved in open source, I started to study the ODF standard, and I understood how difficult it is to create a document standard, because a document is really extremely complex. Here we have some people that so I have an incredible respect for the technical work done by these people. And I think that what they do, they allow us to have digital documents that we can share, we can improve, we can change. But if they're based on a standard, the sharing will be transparent. We will get a document, we will open it, save it, share again, improve it, do whatever we want with that document, and that will be again available for the community because it's based on a standard. On the other hand, when the decoder is proprietary or is not as standard as it should be, then you can only rely on the owner of the decoder to share the documents. And this of course, if you are developing an open source office suite or a software to share documents, will if you own the decoder, this will protect your market share. We can discuss for hours about this, but I can provide you very solid arguments on this. So, almost joking, this is a screenshot of a Microsoft Office document. It was taken 2,500 years ago. Is a talk by Xerxes in 3 different languages. Now someone can tell me which one language is on the left, on the center, and on the right. I don't think so, because the owner of the decoder unfortunately died 2,500 years ago. So this is the solution. You have, if you want to share documents that are really shareable, and I'm not telling you that ODF is the best, fantastic today. It has to improve, like everything that human beings are doing. I'm not telling you that it's the best format you can have, but it's the only standard that we have. So let's work at improving it, because it is standard and the people have to follow the standard. The document that is stored at ISO is exactly corresponds to the description of the standard that then is implemented. Then there are bugs, I know, but at least there is an attempt to have a correspondence between what is declared at ISO and saved as a document. So the open document format is independent. There is not a single company developing the open document format. There are companies, there are individuals, there are organizations. It is open source, as it should be. It's interoperable. If you share an ODF document, you have a very high degree of chances that the person that receives it will be able to read it exactly as you have saved it. provided that you have the same fonts, okay. But even if you don't have the same fonts, the contents will be saved, the contents will be protected. It's neutral. You can use it on Windows, Macintosh, Linux, Android, iOS, whatever, because it's a standard. So independently from the platform you are using, when you save a document, if it's properly saved, it will be always the same. And it's perennial in the sense that being documented, you will always be able to find a reference to when that document has been saved. And in the document, there is of course, it's not visible to the user, but to a technical person, it will be visible. There is a tiny XML tag that says which is the version of the standard that document has been originally created with. And therefore, you have a version of the standard, you have the description of that version, and you can match them. So this is what ODF and Office OpenXML. They were born more or less in the same years, but with two completely different objectives. So ODF was designed for the future, was designed to be a basis for evolution. No previous format was standard. So if you were with OpenOffice when the standard was developed, you know that there was an older format which was probably quite similar to the standard but was not the standard. And then you had the standard. There was a time where you could save in the previous format and in the standard format, exactly to allow people to migrate their documents to the new standard. On the contrary, the Microsoft Office format has been developed to save the last 50 years of documents, but not to provide a path to the future. Or you have that fantastic backward compatibility, which is one of the most stupid marketing gimmicks developed by human beings in the last 50 years. And I'm a marketeer, and I was born 50 years ago, not more. I mean, I was born 70 years ago, but I was already able to understand things 50 years ago. And I worked happily with Microsoft software for years before understanding all this, because I was a victim of Microsoft marketing like most people in the world. Then, luckily, I met the open source environment and I studied quite a lot, but it helped me to grow and not be a victim anymore. So, if you want to make it very simple, and sorry for the people that develop ODF, I respect your work, but I have to try to make ODF simple, to make it easy to understand to people that has not the technical background, which is the main difference. The main difference is that ODF and ODT, in the case of a text, is not complex. It is complex, but the complexity is reduced to a minimum. If you open the XML file of an ODT, which is a writer document, a human being, my wife, is able to read it. My wife has no tech background at all. I'm not criticizing her. We have been married for 40 years, so it's not a criticism to my wife. It's just a fact of life. If my wife opens that same document in Office OpenXML, either she starts crying or she gives up completely, because it's not human readable. You have words scattered around, and with code that is only technical people can understand. And just to give you a very easy and very basic example, those two squares are red. And do not start ask women's which shade of red is that one, because it's clear that we men have a 16K palette and women have 65,000 colors or even more in their mind. So let's assume that this is red and there's only one red around. But I can show you that creativity can make red at least 3 different reds. Look at how LibreOffice described that red in 3 different applications. It's exactly the same. People told me, but it's boring. Yes, it's boring. Standards are boring. Office OpenXML, on the other hand, is very creative. With Word, you have a W. With Excel, you have a color RGB. Why? And with PowerPoint, you have an A as a first letter. People that know the history of PowerPoint will understand why there is that A there, but why the description of the same color is different in 3 different applications. This just to tell you I repeat, this is a really basic example, and the more complexity you go through, the worse is the situation. And please always remember that while LibreOffice is compatible with the Gregorian calendar, Excel is not compatible with the Gregorian calendar. I'm not telling you how the days are calculated, but for instance, for Excel, I was born on day 16,848, not on August 12, 1954, as human beings would understand. Thank you.